We are live, yes? Music Monday? Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Machtails from the Cantina. Another round, the Music Monday edition. We are continuing to celebrate the Yuletide season. I have a very, very special guest tonight. Somebody that really started the Mocktails from the Cantina Music Monday segment with me, but we kind of got sidetracked. And I'm bringing it back today. My good friend Billy Mack will be joining us, talking about his top 3 favorite holiday picks. You know, one thing I wanted to get out of the way, except for, come on, man, it's Ralph McQuarrie art in a pint glass filled with beer from the Costco Advent calendar. Can't really get better than that. Cheers to you guys. Thank you for joining us on a Monday. Last week, I had my good friend Glenn Nelson on the show. And Glenn's top 3 picks, he gave me like this list of like the best 10 Christmas albums. He couldn't just pick 3. Of course, he's a musician. He has to make it complicated, and it's very, very hard to pick just 3. But Glenn's top 3 picks, Nat King Cole, the jazz legend, that was one of his picks. John Denver and the Muppets. That is definitely on my top 10. You guys get a chance, check out the holiday special that came out. Never released on home video. I know HBO ran it back in the day. John Denver and the Muppets Christmas special on YouTube. And then, of course, he picked John Anderson from Yes, 3 Ships, the Christmas album that came out in 1985. Last week, my 3 favorite Christmas albums of all time was Jorma Kaukonen, the lead guitar player from the Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna. Vince Guaraldi, the great jazz musician. I'm going to chat with Billy Mack about Vince because I just think Vince Guaraldi's story is incredible. But my 3rd pick, Jimmy Mack kind of busted my balls a little bit about this, as he should have. True Value Hardware Store based out of Chicago, Illinois, or the Midwest anyway, volume 24. And Jimmy Mack said, volume 20 is far more superior than 24. But I got to tell you, compilations are a huge, huge thing. You either get it dead on, open to close with the music, or, it's kind of like a so-so compilation. I'm going to recommend the first one, and then I'm going to go back and forth with my good friend Billy Mack. Compilation, a very special Christmas number 3. Very special Christmas number 3. That was great from front to back, and all the other compilations in that series were just not as good. But I want to bring on the opening act, I like to call him now that we got that established. My good friend and the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, making sure that everything goes technically smooth. My good friend and yours, or if he's not a good friend of yours, he will be someday, Mr. Tyler Page. Tyler, how are you doing on this Monday evening, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's a good one.
So you're not drinking the Advent calendar beer you shared with me because you put it in the fridge too late. So you're going to have it a little later.
Yeah, I'm having it later. I'm still drinking a Hop Valley Cryo Hop. I can't even remember what this one's called.
Oh, that looks like it's got a nice color on there. Is that
it's
New England IPA?
No, I think it's just a normal. It's not double or.
It looks good. It looks good.
Yeah.
I'm finally getting over this 3-week cold, and I know Billy couldn't join us because he was under the weather last week. And 3 weeks for me tomorrow. I kind of stayed away from the really hoppy beers because it's bad for the allergies and whatnot. I probably should not be drinking those kind of beers, but it's hard to stay away from them. Today in the Advent calendar, I wanted to find out if you got this one. This is a Pilsner. This guy, he looks like a sailor, right? Like he's in the Navy.
Yeah.
And Burl Ives, I want to recommend Burl Ives as a pick to check out. He did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer soundtrack. He narrated the Rankin Bass special. He was tied to the FBI's Red Scare investigation. which I found is very, very interesting because, as a folk musician hanging around with Pete Seeger, they were kind of like, not kind of like, they were Rage Against the Machine before Rage was.
Yeah.
They were kind of anti-establishment. They didn't really agree with what the government was doing. So Burl Ives had cooperated with the investigation. There's this great article online about all this. And he kind of turned his back on his friends. And he kind of turned his back on what he believed in to save his music career. But, I mean, the guy's a legend,
Yeah.
But just to... Could you imagine like Zach De La Rocca from Rage Against the Machine going, you know what, I'm tired of communism. I'm going to testify so I can save my music career. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. So, hey, Tyler, I want to share with you, and I'm a little disappointed with the timing, I should say.
Yeah.
We got a big show next weekend, live show number 11, that is going to feature Jason Swink from Rebel Force Radio, Dan Madsen, John Duffy, and Barry Harmon. This is like part one of the Machtails holiday episode. But I have to do this on Saturday.
Ooh.
And I know I know you're going to be at a wedding on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, man.
I hate to do it without you. And I hope everything goes smooth, because I feel like when you're around, things go smooth, and when I'm by myself, things get a little frantic.
You'll be fine. You'll be good.
So I hope so, man. With the stellar lineup, though, I can't drop the ball on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Barry Harmon, fellow Babu freak, with Sega Bits. He and I are going to review. I saw last night, Tyler, 8-Bit Christmas. And my God, man, that was an A++ film for me. Did you see it yet?
Yeah. Very Christmas Story-esque, I would say.
Very Christmas Story-esque, very nostalgic for me. I know I grew up a couple years before you. He got his, in the movie, he got his Nintendo in 88. I got my Nintendo in 87. But the end, I got so emotional at the very, very end. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I did not expect that film to end the way it did.
Neither did I.
Great movie. I definitely recommend that. So I look forward to chatting with Barry Harmon. And you guys don't want to miss Swank and Madsen and Duffy on the same show. It's going to be a great Mocktails from the Cantina holiday episode. But hey, let's get this party rolling tonight on a Monday. I want to bring on my good friend to talk about some holiday music. My good friend Billy Mack. Billy, how you holding up, man? You're hanging in there?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm hanging in. I'm in recovery mode, but back at work. Missed a week of work with COVID, and so hey.
But you're alive and well. You went through you went through the ringer. You were fully vaccinated. You had 2 shots, and it's still got you, man. Well, I'm glad you're on the good side of recovery.
Worst is behind me. Absolutely.
So the vaccination, I know the vaccination is controversial, but it definitely pays off. Billy, I am dying. I was dying to have you back on Music Monday. I always love talking music with you. We have Star Wars in common, but music it takes us to another level. I want to start with your number 3, your third of top 3 picks of Christmas albums of all time. And what I mean by all time, it's the album that you can't get through the holiday season without at least spinning that, because it feels like Christmas when you hear it.
Well, I have to start out by saying my absolute number 1 is the Vince Guaraldi album. And I didn't want to repeat the same stuff, so I left that out. We're putting that one aside. And
I definitely want to talk to you about Vince. He's from the Bay Area. He's from Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Fillmore country, and the guy was in the right spot at the right time. But you know what? We will save that.
We'll save it
a little later on this show.
Yeah. So my number 3, and I'm by no means an expert in Christmas music, okay, but I do have a few favorites. My number 3 is this one right here, Jimi Hendrix.
Number 3,
Hendrix.
yes.
I listen to this every Christmas. So what is this album? It's not, some of you might be very surprised to find out that Jimmy has a Christmas album. Well, it's not really, it's not really a Christmas album. It's just an EP. It's a couple of jams he did of various songs. They're just instrumentals. Little Drummer Boy, Old Lang Syne is on there. So, you know, when I think about Christmas music, I quite often, I'm sure like you do, go back to my childhood and some of the more idyllic moments and the excitement around the season. And those are very fond memories. This release does not take me back to that point, though.
You know what? Can
this
we?
Is more of a this is more of a college era. Which
okay, you know what? I need to talk about this album before you reveal your number 2, because I feel like you're getting closer to revealing your number 2.
No, I'm gonna stick on this for a minute.
Okay, cool. Don't
not moving on yet.
I definitely love the history of this recording.
Well, I don't know too much about the history. It's in studio. It's not a live. I mean, it's the band playing live. I think it's the Band of Gypsies at this.
It is the Band of Gypsies, yes.
Yeah, and so who is that? Buddy Miles and
Billy Cox on bass and Buddy Miles. Buddy Miles on the drums.
Billy Cox and Buddy Miles. And so, you know, like I said, my Christmas memories are those idyllic ones, mostly from childhood. This one takes me back to the smoky, hazy memories of college. And, you know, and those are just as fond to me.
Now, did you first discover this on vinyl, or did you first?
I was thinking about that because my CD is, I would say this came out about 20 years ago. It's on CD, yes, 20 years ago. Yes. So I know I knew it before then, and I don't know what it is. My brother, you know, we had a lot of vinyl, and of course we broke into that when we were home from college. That was the great thing. We'd come home from college and hook up with all of our buddies, and we'd party over the break and listen to a lot of music. And he had a lot. My brother Jim had a lot of Hendrix, and he had some bootleg stuff. So it might have been on one of those. But I knew I was familiar with it when I got this release.
Let me see the back of that. It's the Band of Gypsies on. Yes, the Band of Gypsies on there. Only 3 tracks. Now I do want to give you guys a little bit of a backstory. Oh yeah, I love this. Hendrix as Santa Claus holding 2 of his records. 2 of his records in there.
He's holding Axe as Bold as Love. You know, it's funny because I'd forgotten that this was a real picture. I dug this out and was looking at it and thought that this was maybe a Photoshop picture, but it was an actual picture of him with a fake beard.
Yeah, there is a if you go on Google, there's like this really cool I don't want to say behind the scenes, but this spread of Jimi Hendrix Christmas-oriented photos. And I want to say that photo was done probably to promote those albums, but obviously before 1969 is when that Christmas recording was. But the story behind, and we got some photos from this, the Band of Gypsies, the short-lived Band of Gypsies was doing a very, very big gig at the Fillmore in 1969 on New Year's Eve, the Fillmore East. And they were rehearsing like crazy. And it was during the Christmas season because the gig was on New Year's Eve. And this essentially is a recording, Billy, what you have in your hand, a rehearsal segment that they just kind of hit record on and roll through. But I feel like the true essence of that Christmas selection that Hendrix does is they recently re-released this album called Songs for Groovy Children, because that's dialogue that Hendrix uses during the New Year's Eve set. And they do Stone Free, as part of the second set. And there's a part after the first opening of Stone Free where the band just kicks it into this instrumental jam for like 10 minutes. And it is one of the most amazing things I've ever heard of Hendrix. He's on my top 5 artists of all time. And he breaks into Little Drummer Boy while jamming out to Stone Free. And then they do Old Lang Syne after like the Fillmore does a countdown, right? The stage manager does a countdown. They play it on the PA, the traditional version of Old Lang Syne. And then Hendrix comes out with the Band of Gypsies. This is the first release of that Fillmore East New Year's Eve recording. And it actually is the first song on this. But then when they released the whole set, it became the first song of the second set. So once you got the complete recording, it was a little out of order.
No, there's a DVD of this, isn't there?
There's a DVD of this, yes, but I feel like the DVD shot, in black and white, it does not capture the performance like the recording does. I mean, the recording is mind-blowing, and it does not feel like Christmas until I hear Stone Free with the Little Drummer Boy jam in the middle. So Billy, I definitely recommend you check that out. I'm sure Jimmy has it on vinyl, but it's not really sold as a New Year's Eve recording, right? It just is live at the Fillmore East, Mm-hmm. But once you get into the liner notes and that sort of thing, you're like, oh wow, this is a holiday recording. But that Hendrix recording that you shared with me, it is not on my top 5, believe it or not. Just because it's a fun listen. It's a fun listen, and like you said, you did not expect Hendrix to come out with a full-blown Christmas record,
Exactly.
So there's a little history. Now you even know more. So number two, Adam D's checking in tonight.
Okay, my number 2. I'm going to go. This one is actually kind of a newer one to me. So some of these don't all go back. The album came out in '68, though. I don't have a physical copy of it here. And this is a guitarist by the name of John Fahey, who I've been really getting into a lot over the last couple of years. Do you have a photo of it? The title of the album is it's called A New Possibility.
A New Possibility. I got Tyler behind the scenes working on getting us a copy of that image. Billy, I got to ask you, what is that rum and coke?
No, this is not alcohol. This is Diet Dr. Pepper in a Coke glass.
Oh, yeah, incognito.
It's a work night, and I'm getting over this cold, so no I'm behaving myself tonight.
So John Fahey, here's the record album cover. Yeah, very is it late 60s-esque? You said it came out in 1968.
Yeah, 68 or 69, I think. This guy's great. I'm a guitar player. I've been really getting into this guy a lot. It's kind of an interesting story. Now I'm still kind of learning about him, but he is really one of the innovators of solo instrumental guitar. I mean, he's an acoustic player. He put out his first album just on his own in the late 50s. He's very steeped in American roots music. He was somewhat of a scholar of blues and folk, and with a little bit of classical thrown in.
Okay, and maybe like a Leo Kottke or Al Di Meola kind of player.
No, I wouldn't compare him to Di Meola. He's more like Leo Kottke, but
okay.
It's more the quality of his playing. It has kind of a spooky quality to it. It's hard to explain. It's like I said, it's very roots oriented, very much steeped in like blues, American folk. It's very rustic sounding.
I have to check that out. Where's he based out of?
What's that?
Well, where's he based out of?
Well, he was. I think he's from the East Coast. I believe.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not an expert on the guy. I got into him a couple years ago and started learning some of his stuff. And he's passed away. He died about 20 years ago.
Okay.
But he's one of the, now there's some great classical guitar Christmas albums. I mean, there's some great instrumental Christmas albums out there now, but there wasn't when he put this out. He was one of the first people to do this, and he actually put out several Christmas albums. This one was his first, and they've reissued it with some additional tracks and stuff now on CD. It's fantastic. I think
I will pick that up. It's and there's no band. It's just him with his guitar.
It's just him. And he used a lot of very unusual tunings. If you do like the sound of this, I recommend you go back and pick up this album called The Legend of Blind Joe Death, I think it's called. Great stuff. Great stuff. Great. I mean, if you like instrumental acoustic guitar playing, I think you'll be blown away by this guy. It's just, like I said, there's just a spooky, rustic quality to his playing. I mean, you hear it and it sounds like you're transported into some old cabin in the middle of Kentucky in the 1800s or something. It's just, it's so cool. It's so cool what he did. And I think he was a very big influence on a lot of guitar players, but not a lot of people have heard of him. So
he's what you call a musician's musician,
Blind Joe Death, yeah, it's a great album. Oh,
that's kind of a dark album cover, man.
A lot of his album covers. Well, he, like I said, he started by issuing his own records, just like, out of his house, I think. And so, there's kind of an urban legend quality to his releases. His initial covers would just have the title and nothing on them. And then, over the years, he re-recorded things and they've been reissued. And, there's multiple versions of some of his best known pieces. But
how did you fall on? How did you get introduced to such an underground artist from yesteryear?
I had a book that had a transcription of a song called Sunflower River Blues, and it was in an alternate tuning, and I had never heard of it before, so I looked it up, and this song actually sounded a lot like Jimmy Page to me. It sounded like this Led Zeppelin song called Poor Tom, which is on Coda. For Zeppelin fans, that was their last release. It was kind of a kind of a collection of oddball recordings and stuff from Led Zeppelin. There's an acoustic song on there called Poor Tom. It sounds a lot like Sunflower River Blues. So I really wanted to learn it just because I like that song and it sounded like it. And that just, it just opened a door. And there was another book I found. And there was a lot of video of him like on YouTube and stuff, like showing how he played songs and stuff. He was kind of an unusual guy. He was into art and antiques, and he was a big drinker, and I think he always had money problems and stuff. And it's a very, and collected old records, and supposedly was very knowledgeable of early American music and stuff. And so interesting story. So I just kind of got lured in,
I think that's a really, really cool story. Going back to your comment on instrumental Christmas music, I feel like that's one thing that attracts me to a lot of the great jazz Christmas music. Is a lot of it is instrumental jamming, that plays the music as traditional as it can be to the ear, but then it kind of goes off on its own. And I think that is one of the greatest things about Vince Guaraldi's record is it's jazz, it's instrumental trio. You got the bass, piano, drum. It's a lot easier to your ear if you're not a jazz aficionado. I know brass can be a little tricky sometimes to people that are not jazz musicians. But the cool thing about Vince Guaraldi was, he was not big. He was not a big artist, and he was living in the Bay Area. And I know he put out the album with Bola Sete, which is a great album. And Bola Sete played at the Fillmore. I was wondering if Vince played at the Fillmore, but I don't believe he did. With all my knowledge of all the concert posters, of course. But the greatest thing about him was he was in the right place at the right time, and he essentially made his living on making music for Charles Schultz, And that's every jazz musician's dream, is to play great music and to get a paycheck.
Yeah, steady gig, man. I mean, that's
yeah, steady.
You got that, you're blessed in any entertainment, any entertainment type of job. I mean, shoot.
I think it kind of like Burl Ives too. Like Burl Ives was around for a long time, musically. He wrote a lot of songs, played with Pete Seeger, like I mentioned earlier in the show. But I really think that it was the Rankin and Bass Rudolph special that put him on the next level, and he kind of became the Vince Guaraldi, if you will, of the folk scene for television programming, based on just Rudolph. Rudolph alone. He didn't even really do anything other than Rudolph for Rankin Bass Productions.
Well, wasn't he? Wait a minute. So wasn't that? Didn't Gene Autry do the song though? The Rudolph song. Wasn't that Gene Autry?
Yeah, Gene Autry did the song. I don't know if Gene wrote it. I know I know the song was not written by Gene Autry, but I believe Gene Autry's version was probably the first big commercial release of that piece. But I know, and of course, Rudolph, I don't know if you know this history of Rudolph himself, but Rudolph's from Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. Well, yeah, of course, he's from the North Pole.
What do you mean he's from Chicago?
But Rudolph was created through an advertiser that was living in Chicago. He was doing commercials, I believe, for Marshall Fields, or it might have been Coca-Cola, but this guy was an advertiser, an advertising artist, and he created Rudolph as a promotion for, it's either Coke or it's either Marshall Fields. It's one of those two. But Rudolph's origins stem from, there's Gene Autry's record there on Columbia, but Rudolph stems from Chicago. I'm 99% sure on that. I'm 99%. Again, the Google archives can point you in the direction of positive information on the internet.
But you know what I want to say though about the Charlie Brown soundtrack. You know what's great about it though, and I was thinking about this earlier today. Kind of thinking about this show tonight, that it's just, there's such a calming effect to listening to that album. It's like, isn't that great though, that we grew up in a time. Now, I mean, the Charlie Brown special predates us. Of course, it was made in the 60s.
In 65 it was released.
But we grew up in, this period in the 70s and 80s where, we all had we were all watching the same television channels. There was just a handful of them. Christmas would come around. We would all see the same shows. And, it was such a great thing that, like, the entertainment that was available to kids had this great jazz soundtrack. I used to think the same thing about like Mr. Rogers. He always had the piano playing and stuff, and it was so calming and elevating in a way. It's the opposite of obnoxious and oversensitive it was always, I think that's why we remember them so fondly, and the music is a huge part of that equation.
You know,
I mean, can you imagine them making kids entertainment today that has a jazz soundtrack? I mean, you'd be laughed out of, whoever you were suggesting that to. I mean, they would completely laugh that off. I would think,
yeah, I think to some degree, I mean, Soul, of course, that was more of a family-oriented movie, not a children's television program, though. A little different than that, but I think going back to just the concept and the feel of that record and that genre of music, there is something you could put in, like Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, the greatest selling jazz record of all time. They came out, I want to say, in 1955, right in the middle, probably a year or two before or after. But there's something about that genre of music, very much like classical, that is both nostalgic and timeless, because it doesn't, when you listen to the Charlie Brown soundtrack, you get nostalgic, but it's not like putting in a record where you think it's like, if you put in Bing Crosby's, you go deep with the nostalgia, right? I just think there's something that is very timeless about that music, especially from Charlie Brown soundtrack, where I think that's why it held up with kids in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and that's why we're still watching it today. I think that has a lot to do with it, because that music is so timeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you said that was your number one, but you didn't want to repeat. You didn't want to repeat.
I didn't want to repeat. Yeah. So I got to tell people about John Fahey too. So I've got an agenda here, maybe.
Well, I want to know more about this John Fahey, because it sounds like it's cavernous kind of music,
I mean, there's ones that I mean, everybody knows this. I mean, I grew up with this album like everybody else. This is the Chipmunks. We had at my house one of those big old-fashioned console turntables, that had the shelves on the inside of it for the albums, and the speakers were built in and everything. The top would flip up. It was a big wooden side table. And every year, my dad would start decorating the tree, and those were the albums that always came out. Your Bing Crosby, the Sinatra. But there are some other ones, some alternatives. This is one I definitely enjoy very much.
The Beach Boys, yes.
Now this is the CD that I picked up. I probably, let's see, when did this come out? 1998. So this is a little over 20 years old. This is not the original Beach Boys album from the 60s. It has it on here. The original cover for that has the Beach Boys decorating a Christmas tree. So that is on here. And then they attempted to do another Christmas album in the 70s that was shelved. And they included those tracks on this release, as well as some other oddities, a couple of radio announcements and things like that. That's okay. So here's the original album. So now the thing about this, the Old Lang Syne on here has Dennis Wilson, the drummer, speaking over it, most of it, with a Christmas message. So if you get the CD that I just showed, that's got the Old Lang Syne without Dennis speaking over it, which is a great version. I mean, it's just a cappella. I mean, and nobody did vocal harmonies like they were known for. And the other great thing is that half of the songs on that Christmas album are originals. Little Saint Nick is one you hear all the time still.
Yeah, Little Saint Nick. That was covered by the Muppets on the John Denver Muppets record.
Yeah, I hear that one all the time. The Man with All the Toys is another original on here. There's
So
about 4
just
or
to
5.
connect the dots here with this Beach Boys record. Okay, so they put out the one that we just saw the album cover of. They put that out in the 60s. They had one that was shelved in the 70s. And this one that you have, that was a kind of a reissue, but did they also record new music with the band that was currently the Beach Boys from 20 years ago on that record as well? Or
No.
all vintage music?
No. Late 90s, there was a whole bunch of Beach Boys stuff coming out. I'm not sure exactly what sparked the interest. Maybe because I think Brian Wilson started recording and touring again. It seemed, because I look back and it just seems like there was a whole mess of interest in the Beach Boys again. I don't know. Maybe their time just had come at that point and people kind of reevaluated them. But this was one of the releases that came out. It does not include any newer recordings, so there's nothing from the early.
Okay, so it's the reissue with some tweaks to it, I guess.
Yeah, some like lost, long lost tracks from the 70s. I think that second album was planned for 1977.
Oh, and it just never saw the light of day.
No. And the songs on there are okay. There's a couple of decent tracks on here, but my primary interest is the album from '64. I just think it's a great album. I think they were just vocally one of the best bands of all time. I do think I am in the Brian Wilson is a genius camp.
Yeah, I am not a hater of the Beach Boys, not a fan, but I'm in the camp. Brian Wilson is a genius for sure, because as a musician, I can appreciate, even though that is not my taste, if you will. I just know and I appreciate the level and the talent that Brian Wilson has and the level that he's on. I'm going to have my B-roll department dig something up here while you show me the Chipmunks record again. I need to see the Chipmunks record again. Billy, I don't know if you knew this, but there is a band that played at Woodstock. I know you know the band, Canned Heat. They're the reason why the Grateful Dead noodled around with their sound system, because they blew out the speakers. But Canned Heat did some Christmas songs, and they did a version with Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that?
I'll give you another connection too. I think I'm pretty sure John Fahey was friends with Blind Owl Wilson.
Yeah, the guitar player.
Because they were both like scholars of early American music and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they did become friends there before he died. Al Wilson died pretty.
Yeah, he died like 1971, I think.
Yeah, but I think they did connect at some point, those two, which is not surprising, Here
it is, man. Now this I do not have this in my collection. I have the recording digitally, but I do not have. I need that 45 in my Christmas collection. Because you essentially have Bob Haidt, this singer of Canned Heat, arguing with Alvin, and it's the craziest thing. Do you know the story behind this? I do not. I'm assuming that they were on the same record label.
Probably. What is it? Well, this was on.
He was on Liberty Records. Yeah, Liberty Records was everything.
That's what the Chipmunks. That's what label this is. Liberty Records.
Okay, if you don't mind, can you hold up that Chipmunk record again? Yeah, there's the Liberty logo. That is crazy. Now, what year did that come out? 67, was it?
I think this came out in the 50s. This one's old. This is the one I had when I was a kid.
Okay.
This is 1962.
62, and I think that Canned Heat Alvin and the Chipmunks recording, that's probably more from 1967, if my memory serves me well, like Luke Skywalker. But
and the Chipmunks were just one guy who who I always identified as Dave Seville, but his name's not Dave Seville. It's and it's on here, Ross Bagdasarian. I don't even know how to say this.
Hey, if you don't mind, dude, it's so funny because that's on vinyl. A lot of people are not familiar with vinyl. What is the back? Is it the back cover or the front cover?
This is the front. This is the
Let me see the back of that. Okay, see, that's what you don't get with digital recordings. Is you don't get the artwork, you don't get all the fine prints. You know, it's vinyl.
Yeah, you don't get, my sister wrote her name on here. You don't get those fond memories either.
No. So, okay, John Fahey, you want to talk a little bit more about him, or do you want to reveal your number one of all time?
Oh, well, I think I did give you my number one. Didn't I give you all? You said three. I got three. I do have honorable mentions. I think you mentioned this one with Glenn, which is the Phil Spector.
Yes,
album.
okay.
This is a terrific album.
I've been recommended that by so many people. It is time for me to check that out.
Now, I can't recommend Phil Spector as a person.
I was also told that as well, and that is why I did not get into that record, because it's like Phil Spector, I've heard so many bad things about the guy.
Yeah, he was out of his mind, and he ended up dying in prison because he murdered some poor woman.
I think there was a documentary about that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and there's a made-for-TV movie with Al Pacino. It was, and so when was he put on trial? When was that? That was like 20 years ago?
It sounds about right, yeah.
He was showing up in court, behaving very strangely with wigs on and stuff. And the guy was completely out of his mind. And a lot of the people who worked with him, and I should clarify, by the way, he is not the musician or the singer on this record. He was a
producer, right?
He was a producer in the 60s. He was known for producing a lot of hit bands in the early mid 60s. That was kind of his period.
I think
a lot of these girl bands.
Yeah, the Crystals, I think, were one of them.
Yeah, and the Ronettes, and
yes, the Ronettes.
That's who is on this album. It's not. He's only the producer on it, and he did produce some great music. But everybody who worked with him, almost all of them said that he was just nuts. He was big. Apparently he brought a gun into the studio when he was working with the Ramones and was threatening them. And
wow, well, yeah,
yeah, he was a really strange guy. But anyway, it is a great album. A couple of the songs on here are in Goodfellas, if you're a fan of that movie. I think Frosty the Snowman.
Yes. I have a Patreon member that recommended that recording to me because of the song being in Goodfellas. What was it? Frosty the Snowman that was in?
I think so. It's the scene where they kill Billy Bats, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's right before that. Maybe it's Sleigh Ride or Frosty the Snowman. It might be both of them.
One of the classics. You know, one record that I wanted to recommend today, because I recommended Burl Ives simply for nostalgia. Also recommended a compilation, a very special Christmas #3. I want to recommend a jazz musician, Wynton Marsalis. He did 2 Christmas records, but the first one, I think it's called a Christmas Jam. If you are in a shitty mood and you want to just lighten up and laugh and dance and have a good time, put this record in. It's very Nolans style jazz, if you will. Just a great fun instrumental jazzy jam record. Highly recommend that. You know, Billy, I am going to end the show with you, and thank you so much. One more thing. Do you have any other honorable mentions that you have in front of you before we move on to the final chapter of this evening?
I don't have any. No, I don't have any in front of me. I don't have any physical.
Well,
I think I've shared all my Christmas.
Okay, you should. I'm like, I have this library. Glenn Nelson gave me like his top 10, and I was only looking for the top 3. I mean, just a plethora of Christmas music. But I am doing one of my main influences, love him or hate him. Stephen Colbert does this Stephen Colbert questionnaire. And I have decided to take my influence and my inspiration from him, and I am doing a Chris Mocked Christmas questionnaire. I'm doing this with your brother, Jimmy. I'm doing this with Jason from Rebel Force Radio. But, I'm going to go Darth Vader on here.
Okay.
I'm going to test it on Captain Billy. Okay, like the carbonite. Okay, I'll ask you just 3 questions, just to get a little bit to know more about you during the Yuletide season. Real or fake? Real Christmas tree or fake Christmas tree do you put up?
Real Christmas tree.
Real Christmas tree. And then second part question to that. I have to have at least one real Christmas tree. When do you take that down? Are you a kind of guy that waits for the 12 days of Christmas to pass, like the Epiphany, or do you wait till that day, or do you kind of, hey, New Year's Eve, the tree's coming down?
After New Year's. After New Year's.
After New Year's.
So it's not like it doesn't have to be immediately after New Year's, but it stays at least until New Year's, and it may be several days after New Year's when until it comes down. Maybe that following weekend. You
gotta keep it hydrated, man. You gotta keep it hydrated, otherwise it's a fire hazard for sure. Yeah. Second question: what is the moment that happens for you every Christmas where you're like, you know what, this feels like Christmas to me? Like that magical Christmas moment. If it's seeing a family member, if it's firing up a record, if it's a certain smell in the air.
That's tough because it's changed. There've been some changes over the years. Traditionally, it was always Christmas Eve. That's usually when my family and extended family got together. That was a little different when I was younger, because it was like my cousins, and that was when we were little kids. That was probably the most exciting time for me. And as I got older, that was my brother's family and my parents and everybody. That was when we would do our gift exchange. Traditionally, I'm not sure we're doing that this year. I think we don't buy as many. When all the kids were younger, we bought a lot more gifts. So that was always the moment that I thought was the best. Just when everybody was together on Christmas Eve, and the wine started flowing, and we'd open the gifts, and everybody was kind of gathered in that one room at my parents' house that we never used except for special occasions.
Right.
So that's to me that's the best. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's when
Christmas Eve was the big one for you. Everybody got together. That was kind of like,
yes.
You got the music going, you got the wine going, you got
that's the big payoff. Yeah, I mean, Christmas morning, of course, was always great, but that was Christmas Eve. I think was always the best. That was when everybody, kids and adults, let their hair down and just really enjoyed being with each other. So so that's the ideal. That's the ideal for sure.
Now, the last question is, what is the one gift? Now, it's probably many, but the one gift that comes to mind when from your childhood that was the greatest gift that you ever got. Like for me, I'll never forget getting the Millennium Falcon, not from Santa Claus, but from my dad's mom, my grandmother. And, I I got it behind me here. Not the one from my childhood, of course, but the repurchased one, the vintage Empire Strikes Back box. I remember driving home on Christmas Eve, looking at that as the lights from the street had kind of put enough light in the car where I could see the artwork on the box. And of course, the Nintendo in 1987 and my first guitar in 1987. 86 for the Nintendo, 87 for the guitar. What would you say top 3 Christmas gifts are?
Well, of course, I would love to pick a Star Wars. As you can see behind me, I have many fond memories of toys and Star Wars, and certainly getting them on Christmas morning back in the day. But the one that I as you're asking me this, I keep thinking about, in Citizen Kane, where he's always talking, they're trying to figure out what Rosebud is.
Yes.
It's his sled from when he was a kid. There's just certain attachments we have to things, and they go back to childhood, and they're kind of magical. When I was, I think 4 or 5 Christmas morning, I got the Fisher Price Little People Sesame Street set.
Oh yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, I actually bought the house. I had that when I was a kid. And I bought the house at a thrift store a couple of years ago. Yes, I remember that. That's not one of the gifts that I remember getting for Christmas, but I could tell that you are a couple years older than me because I had Tom Burgess from IGrewUpStarWars.com, the nostalgic Star Wars website, and that was one of the gifts that he mentioned getting as a kid, that vintage Fisher Price Little People play set. So that was a big one for you for Christmas.
I still have it. I still have my original one. And it was just one of those magical moments. And I remember my brother, there it is. Yeah, but there was a set, if you can find it.
Those were the people that went in.
Open it and I was obsessed with Sesame Street at that point in time.
Yes.
I was enamored with that thing. I loved it. And
I'm still obsessed with Sesame Street.
My brother had gotten $6 Million Man the same year. Would you believe? Here, look at this, Chris. I actually have a photo of me with it. Do you want to see it? It's on my phone. I don't know if you can. This is. Gosh, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see
it. So that's
it.
me. I'm wearing the green pajamas there.
Oh, yeah,
you see it on the floor there?
Yes.
That's my brother standing behind me in blue. And
it looks like somebody's got the Cookie Monster.
That's my mom. I still have that. Would you believe it? And
that is awesome.
My brother is standing next to his $6 Million Man rocket ship.
Yes, to the left there. I see it to the left. Yes.
And it's not totally clear, but I'm sure you can make it out, and you can see the Sesame Street on the floor there. And I still have that thing.
That is incredible, man.
It's just there was like just a magical moment. I don't know what else to say.
Well, Sesame Street was such a huge thing when we were growing up. It was kind of the pop culture power punch, if you will, before Star Wars had come out. Sesame Street was a huge thing. The cool thing about that, you got the Cookie Monster there. There's a video. I have a lot of family video, thank God, from my grandparents when I was a kid. And I can't show this now because I don't have it queued up, but I get that Cookie Monster that your mom is holding for Christmas in the box. Now, unfortunately, I did not have that for very, very long. I wish I still had it today. Now you're okay. The Sesame Street Little People came with, I want to say, 2 beds, and they were spongy, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now, they had a foam mattress.
Yeah. Now did your foam deteriorate like the foam in the Dagobah playset does?
Yeah, same thing.
It did.
All apart. And I, like I said, I still have the beds, but it's just the glue in there.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked it out. I'm sure, there's probably somebody who sells replacement foam for that. There it is.
There it is.
And there are the two beds. And if you can see in the photo, those beds don't have foam in them either. So you know that this is a modern photo we're looking at here.
That is awesome. Yeah, I bought that. It was incomplete. It was just the shell, if you will, and I brought that home for my daughter. And the cool thing is that the other side of that, if you remember, well, you remember because you have it. It was like a chalkboard.
Yeah. And it came with a little eraser, and
such a cool piece, man.
It was great. I mean, it was such a cool play set. You got, and it had, there are 4 rooms in there, and you had Bert and Ernie's apartment. You had Susan and Gordon's apartment, Mr. Hooper's malt shop or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and then kind of a mystery apartment. I always use that as Grover's place, but.
Yeah, I want to say did it come with the garbage truck or was it the mail truck?
Yeah, well, the garbage truck. That's the green. You can see it
yes.
right there. It's that green, and it says Sesame Street Sanitation. And you can.
Yeah, and do you still have every single piece that came with that?
I have it all. I think I had to replace what was missing. Most of what I have is original. I had to get a new ladder. I tracked one of those down. And would you believe I found somebody who was selling the chalk and the eraser? And it had the chalk was still in the box. Like it had the little, and it was the same one that came with it. So I got
wow.
I even have that.
Crazy.
The only thing I don't have is the box that it came in. That's
wow,
it.
that's
great. I have everything else.
It is hard to argue that as being not a favorite Christmas toy by all means. It's cool and it's crazy that you still have it. I wish I had my toys from when I was a kid. That's why I still save my daughter's toys, because nobody gave me that opportunity. And I'm like, you know what? My daughter is kind of outgrowing some toys. I would rather let her make the decision later on to get rid of them or not. Why would you want to sell that at a garage sale for $1 if you still have it today and it has so many memories attached to it? It's priceless.
Yeah, there were things that I lost throughout the years, Chris, and maybe there were items that showed up in a garage sale because I didn't really care at the time or whatever, and I wish I didn't get rid of them. But I'm amazed that I still have as much original stuff as I have. I don't know. I took care of it, and I just I don't know. I put it away. And
for you youngsters at home that are getting some toys for Christmas, or you adults like myself, take care of your toys, man.
Take care of your toys.
Take care of your toys. I got to wrap it up with a follow-up question to that. My Sesame Street brain is firing here. Did you grow up with the Sesame Street Christmas? They did so many holiday specials. I think the first one might have been Christmas Eve on Sesame Street, if I'm not mistaken. Do you recall those from when you were a kid?
I don't remember. Did they? Well, it was only that picture that I showed you. That was the only thing that was on at that time was Sesame Street. I don't even think the Muppet Show had come on yet.
No, the Muppet Show
I don't remember them having
several years
Christmas shows. Maybe they did. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think
did they have specials back then?
Yeah, the first Sesame Street record, I want to say, could be wrong. I love the album cover, the very, very first Sesame Street vinyl release. I want to say that might have been from 1975. And you can get that. I don't want to say her name, but you can get that on the little black box if you have Amazon Music Unlimited. Just some really, really great Christmas music from the gang, from the street gang, if you will. And they did so many Christmas specials. I think the first one might have come out in 1977, But that's what Muppet Wiki is for. but I recommend, if you guys are looking for some really cool Muppet nostalgia, some Sesame Street nostalgia, head over to Muppet Wiki and just type in Christmas specials and you'll get a plethora of them. Billy, I want to thank you so much. I hope to see you at my Star Wars Christmas party on Wednesday the 22nd, if it doesn't overlap with another holiday event that you have going on.
Yeah, I hope so. I think so, actually.
It's always a good time, man. Bring the guitar, learn some Christmas songs.
I'll play some
we will jam out. I'll break out the hand percussion. I want to thank you guys for watching us on Facebook Live, on YouTube. I want to thank the Patreon members, of course. Thank you so much for your support. Not only continued support, but for supporting me all through. God, it's going to go on 2 years now. Mocktails from the Cantina coming up in April. So it's been a long ride and it's been a fun one. And I want to thank you guys for being a part of it. Merry Sithmas, as this mug says, we will catch you guys next Saturday, whatever date that is. I want to say the 18th. We have Jason Swing from Rebel Force Radio, Dan Matson, John Duffy, and Barry Harmon of the Babu Freaks, the Patreon portion of Rebel Force Radio. It is going to be the virtual Christmas party next Saturday starting at 2 p.m. Central. So be well, be safe, wash your hands, treat each other as you would want to be treated, and have a Merry, Merry Christmas. We will catch you guys next time on Mocktails from the Cantina. Another round. So long, everybody.